Good, Pesach, Schus for Eretz Yisrael. So here's the story with the Haggadah. If you're anything like me, you found the Haggadah to be seemingly random and haphazard. And what I want to do with this shir is I want to show you how my studying it for the last few days showed me that there's a very clear organization to the Haggadah, clear system, and why it starts where it starts and what comes next and how it all comes together in a very clear way. For me, this was a very valuable study with a lot of important ideas, and I am sure it will enrich my own magid, so I wanted to share with everyone. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the beginning of the Haggadah, from לחמא, עניא, and we'll go through it. And one caveat is, I just want to say that these ideas some of them are perhaps speculative. I wasn't ma'ayin and everything, and could be some of these things have been said, could be some of them are not correct. This is what comes out from my iyun. Shaloi bi iyun kol hatzayich. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. So we start with לחמא, עניא. We start the Haggadah with talking about the matzah. So firstly, the very fact that we start our conversation, we start talking by using the subject of the matzah, that follows from the fact that the Gemara says that lechem oini means lechem she'oinim olav devarim harbe, different gears, which means to say that the speaking, siput Mitzrayim, is centered on the food, on the bread. It's not just a mitzvah to be mesaper. You learn the Rambam is a mitzvah to be mesaper. Okay, very nice. But if there would just be a mitzvah to be mesaper Tzis Mitzrayim on Leil Chamisha Asar, we would do it maybe in shul or before the meal. Mm-hmm. But no, it's part of the meal, and that comes from the fact that lechem oini, it's that the bread has to have along with it a sipur. And similarly, the next questions of the Marishtan all revolve around food. The whole Magid is part of a seder of a seder of a meal. And in general, the mitzvahs of Pesach are centered on achila. I think I mentioned this in the last year that in the parasha of Achodesh Elochem, so the first half of the parasha, which talks about the mitzvah of Pesach, the root of Aleph Chaf Lamed appears 7 times, and then the second half, when it starts talking about matzah, it appears again 7 times. But even without that, it's quite obvious that the mitzvahs revolve around eating, around food, and similarly, the mitzvah of sipur is then integrated into the food experience, the meal. Okay, so that's lechem she'oinim olav devarim harbe. That's bavur ze asa Hashem li b'shosha matzah umor menachal lefanecha, and v'amartem zevach Pesachu. So the amira relates to the achilas Pesach and the Haggadah as well. Why all the mitzvahs revolve around food? I don't know. In other words, you could have had other things commemorate. Why is food the axis of the mitzvahs of Zechiras Tzis Mitzrayim on Pesach? I don't know. Okay, so but the point is like this. The point is you have to understand that we're having a meal. Haggadah is like this. You're having a meal. You made kiddush, and now you're up to hametzi. Go wash your hands. But no. This lechem is not just lechem that you eat. It's lechem that you talk about. So this is like the Hakdama, like, okay, we're about to have this lechem, but I want to tell you about this lechem. This is not lechem we're going to eat without first talking about it. That's halach ma'anya. Okay. And then follows with these questions. And as we said, the questions revolve around food, because halach ma'anya declared that the meal that we're about to have is a unique meal, something that we're going to think about, we're going to define and discuss. Fine. So then it follows with detailed questions on the meal. And of course the questions are, as we all know, the questions come from the fact that the Torah talks about the children asking questions. Fine. Avodim hayinu. So now, avodim hayinu is mashma that this is the answer to the questions. Where's it mashma? because, meaning, Be'etzem Avodah Meinu doesn't seem to answer the questions because it doesn't explain matzah, lora, tibul, it doesn't explain it. It just says Avodah Meinu Mמצרים, vayotzienu Hashem, and it adds on this fact that if Hashem wouldn't have taken us out, then we would still be משעובדים, us and our children. So where's the mashma that it's answering the question? It's mashma because why are we focusing on the fact that us and our children would still be משעובדים? Why is there a focus on anu ובנינו ובני בנינו? Because this is a response to a question that came from a ben. So the fact that in Avodah Meinu we talk about, you should know, if not for that, us and our children and our children's children would be משעובדים, that suggests to me that this nusach is there because you're answering a question posed by a son. So if you tell him, you should know, you also would be in Mitzrayim if Hashem would have taken us out. Okay, but now we have to understand. Beseder. Why is that the focus? Saif, he's asking you questions, very specific questions, and you're not answering them. You're just saying we were Avadim, and Hashem took us out. And had Hashem not taken us out, we would still be there, and you'd be there too. Okay, so let's understand, how is that an answer to the question? That's not really the questions. So the answer is like this. The questions are not, why are we doing these mitzvahs? That's not the questions. The question is, meaning, the question is, this night, be'etzem, is not a time that's different than other times. And yet, you're acting as if this time is different. So in other words, the question is not merely that, okay, you're doing Maisa Mitzvahs, explain to me what the Maisa Mitzvahs are about. If that was the question, then, same way it says, let's say, you sit in the sukkah, okay, so you sit in the sukkah and you should talk about that. And some people say you have to talk about that when you sit in the sukkah, you have to think about that, fine. But here the question is not, why are you doing these mitzvahs? The question is like this. The question is, here you're acting as if this time is a unique time, but it's not. Why is it not a unique time? Because nothing unique is happening at this time. So in other words, the Ben is seeing, and we'll soon see why Chazal saw this in the Torah and how we understand the Shak v'Tayr with the Ben and the father this way. The Ben is not just asking, tell me Pshan this mitzvah. Tell me Pshan this mitzvah. That's Rabbi Gamliel Omer. Matzah al Shem Zeh, Mar al Shem Zeh, Pesach al Shem Zeh. The Ben is asking that here you are acting as if this is a unique time, but it's not a unique time. You're going to tell me something happened 1,000 years ago, but that didn't happen now. So
different from Sukkot, from Rosh Hashanah, from Kippur. In Rosh Hashanah, you could say something is happening now or whatever. But
right.
Sukkot, Shavuos,
it's not happening now. Right. What Sukkot is not happening now. Right. Correct. And yet on Pesach, from the fact that the Torah says that. Okay, 1 second. So what are you asking? You're asking what's the kasha? Maybe you're not implying that anything is happening now by doing mitzvahs. Where does he see that?
You are or you aren't, but why is it specifically Pesach that you have a say that you have something special, whereas every other time you're making kiddush, you're making something special, you're doing something different.
Right. So the answer is like this. Right. No, the answer is like this. The answer is anything you do must have a reason. Yeah. And okay, so let's approach it this way, and then I think I'll answer all the problems. Where do we see this in the Torah that there's this whole focus? Because like this, where do we see in the Torah that there's a focus that the son has a question about why is this time different? And 1 second, how are you answering the question of how is this time different? You're saying the time is different because what happened then has effects for today. The stress on, okay, if you see, if the son is asking the time, if you look at the present is the same as yesterday, same as tomorrow, the answer is no. But you know why the present looks the way it does? Because once upon a time something happened, and that thing that happened then matters for the present too. And therefore, I'm acting in a way, I'm acting as if I'm back leaving Mitzrayim today, let's say, which we say that at the end of the Haggadah, because actually what happened then does matter for today. Okay, now, right. So it's all. So the past is has effects for today. So I'm not just talking about something that happened once upon a time. I'm talking about something that's relevant today. Now, where do we see this in the Torah? Because let's say that, like Sukkot, take Sukkot as an example. The Torah doesn't say if your son asks you Pshan the Sukkah, tell him. Because of course, if you know Pshan the Sukkah, of course everything you do, you explain that why you're doing it. If the Torah says over here that your son asks a question and you have to give him an answer, that means it's a real Shak v'Tayr. And the real Shak v'Tayr, the Torah puts it in the mouth of the son. which is basically mefurish in the Torah, that the son's question is, it happened to you. It didn't happen to me. What's going on? In other words, the question is not merely explain to me this action. You have to learn Kol Torah Kula. The question is, how is it that you're doing something that's based on your experience when I'm the next generation and I'm detached from that? And that's, since, in other words, again, since the Torah puts the question in the mouth of the son, that means there's a real question that has to do with the fact that he's the son, he's the next generation. And being the next generation not just makes him not know, but say he doesn't know. So look at the pasuk, like again by Sukkah, you don't know. How to explain to him? Now here the Torah says the son's going to come to you and say what's going on. That means that the son, because he's not the one who experienced it, has a kasha. His kasha is, Mela, you experienced it, but I didn't. So it's not alive anymore. It's not relevant to me. And the answer is it's relevant to you. It's relevant to you because ilo Baruch Hu. So now that's why it's much more than a mitzvah, which that's how we see, it's the first place we see, that it's not merely a mitzvah to commemorate. You want to commemorate an ace because you could take out lessons from the Mani Segue. You could take out lessons from the Menorah. Very nice. You should remember these things because these things are important, and the Mechazek Emunah and so on and so forth. But here, at least we're starting from this, from the fact that the Torah has a son asking you a question and you giving him an answer, it means that this is not merely a commemoration about the past. This is a commemoration where you're actually reliving it. That's the key point, that you're reliving the Zman. And as the Rambam says, Ilu yatsa ata mi Mitzrayim, and we have to visualize Ilu we're leaving Mitzrayim. So Manishtana Halayla says, question is, the Zman, you're acting as if you're having like this flashback, like someone who went through a big thing in his life, and every year when the same time comes back, he's like back in leaving Auschwitz, right? And then his kid is like, okay, hello, this is not me, this is you. Could you stop with this every year coming back as if you're back there? It's not happening in this man. That's his question. Manashtana halayla hazeh. It's not that you this happened 70 years ago. It's not happening now. The answer is no. It's happening all the time because that is not, that event in the past is an event that made a difference forever. Okay, so I think does that answer the issue you were getting at?
Well, but how is it that we suddenly ask this question here? If you say
no, because I'm saying because here the father is acting in a way that he is himself experiencing it, and the son is saying it didn't happen now. Opposed to sukkah not. Right? Sukkah is a pashta zeicher.
Sitting in.
Yeah.
And here we're acting on something.
Right, which we know that. We know that to be the case. He's supposed to act ki'ilu yatza'ata.
Right.
So Mela's question, the Rambam's lashon, ki'ilu yatza'ata. But even without the Rambam's lashon, the point is it's not just a zeicher because an important thing. It's an experience. It's an experiential commemoration. Mela's question is, you're making as if something's happening now. Nothing's happening now. And Torah says everything's happening now because things that happened in the past make a difference forever.
That's why it's a whole performative experience.
That's a performative experience, exactly.
To say there's a performance,
right? Say that's performance, exactly, and that's where the question starts. That it's a time question. It's like you're talking about something from the past and you're acting as if it's present. What's going on for you? And the answer is it is present. And now ilo hutzie, everyone has the beautiful Torah on ilo hutzie and why it's true we wouldn't have gotten out and so on and so forth. But pashup shat, the Haggadah is not asserting some counterfactual like had that not happened we would have never gotten out. The Haggadah is merely asserting that we have to understand that there are moments in history that are determinative and crucial forever. Mm-hmm. Had that not happened, maybe something else would have happened, which would have been a different determinative moment. That's not the point of it. The point is, don't think this is just something that happened in the past, something interesting. This is something that was decisive and important for our whole course of history. That's what the ilo hutzie means. I don't think it's necessarily certain. What?
So it's not necessary if we don't do that.
Okay, fine. Something to think about. I hear.
No, it's a counter to what Mordechai says to ask from the Megillah. He says, this is your moment.
This is the moment, exactly.
This is the moment.
Exactly.
It's going to come from somewhere else.
Right.
It's going to be okay.
Right, maybe a different moment.
Like,
but there'll be a different moment. Right.
You're not going to be part of history. That's
right,
exactly.
Exactly.
This is part of history. That's
exactly. The point is, there's history. Right. There's things in history that are not just history. There are moments that not just a fact that happened in the past. Right. These are moments in history. You want to understand history, you have to understand this. You want to understand the present, you have to understand this. That's the point. Okay. You have a good question about Torah. Maybe there's other things like that. Fine. Okay. Now the hemshich then I think is afilu kolonu chachamim, because now we just said that this is a performative experience. We're reliving it. This is not just that we're telling something because we want to learn it. We're talking about it because we want to relive it. And therefore, I think, furthermore, that's why kol amar b'lasap b'tzias amreis meshubach, because this is not merely a mitzvah. This is like this. This is, you know why it's a mitzvah to talk about it? Because you're there. The same way, I think that's a good mashal. That guy who every year he relives his experience. So when that day comes around, he pasha can't talk about anything else. That's pasha what's on his mind. So kol amar b'lasap is not because it's a mile to talk more. It's because if you're taka living up to, you're there again and you're experiencing it again, so therefore you won't talk about anything else. And that's why, again, this is Torah speculative, so whatever. The Tosefta says that a person has to learn, well, okay, Tosefta goes like this, Chayv Adam Lasik B'chas Pesach Kol Halayla until he falls asleep. The Torah says, and the Shulchan Aruch, Chayv Adam Lasik B'chas Pesach U'B'sipri Tzitzaim until he falls asleep. So firstly, the idea of till you fall asleep, I think, is because it's not that you're supposed to be marvelous saper quantity, or let's say, more minutes. It's that minutes per hour you're supposed to be marvelous saper. And as long as you're up, this is what you should be talking about. It's talking about something else instead of this means that you're not really there. Because if you're really there, this is all you'll be talking about. But there is one other thing that you need to talk about on Pesach night, which is Hilchas Pesach. So Hilchas Pesach doesn't take away from Sipri Tzis Mitzrayim, because the point is there should be nothing else on your mind except for the fact, the experience, and of course your mitzvahs that relate to that. That's why we have Hilchas Pesach and Sipri Tzis. And people, I think there's like, wait, are you Mekayim Sipri Tzis with Hilchas Pesach? I think that's missing the boat. I think Hilchas Pesach and Sipri Tzis of Kol Halayla are a function of the Zman Hazeh is talking to you, is making you feel something, and therefore you're not talking. You're not being Mesiach Das. Not being Mesiach Das means either Sipri Tzis or Memela. It's not a key, right? It's not a reboy and a mitzvah. How many you do it? What?
It's a living experience.
It's a nomadic from the living experience. That's what I would suggest, right? Okay, and of course the story Ma'aser B'Elazar is to support the Marba L'Saper, and okay, Amar Loz Matzayah somehow connects to that. That's all the complication. Sipri Tzis is Chira. That is taka complicated. I don't have that clear, but I want to focus now. Obviously, there's so much to say. I want to focus now on the Seder. The Tzur is Haggadah. So far, the Tzur is very clear. Okay, then we make a bracha. Baruch HaMakam Baruch Hu, and we make a bracha. What's the content of this bracha is the climax is Baruch Shenasan Torah. Can I get Arba Bonam Tibet Torah? So we're about to darshan the Torah. In other words, we still have that there's an issue of sons and their questions. And like we said, the question is, what does that have to do with me? What does that have to do with now, the next generation? Okay, so we're showing that, where does it say this in the Torah? Because the Torah talks about giving your sons answers. And the Torah talks about this in 4 distinct places. So therefore, there's a drush over here. What's Pshat Torah talks about in 4 places? Because there are 4 types of children. And before we jump into that, we make a bracha on the Torah because we're now going to darshan the Torah. Okay, this is the 4 sons. Any day Elishol, At Tzachlo, we bring the pasuk, we get the lebincha. We bring that pasuk, we get the lebincha. So we darshan that pasuk, we get the lebincha. That's Yachom Eresh Chodesh. Because it says we got the lebincha. We got the lebincha would be Eresh Chodesh because it says Vavadas Avodas B'Chodesh Hazeh. But no, it says Bayomahu, and then it says Bavur. So this takes us back to the children having a conversation with a children-related conversation. B'Shosha Matzah Moram Lochem Fanecha. Okay, which is that's what we've been doing till now.
Which makes an experience in which brings the children into it. Right. So that's, of course. In other words, the fact that it's part of the meal, it means that it's an experiential thing, right? Is that what you're saying? Like, yeah. You bring them into it. It's not just stam dry recounting. Yes. I still think it's notable that the mitzvahs revolve around eating dafka. Maybe it could be things other than eating, even if you want to be experiential. So that's something to think about still. Okay. What?
Could have had all the toys instead.
Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah, there's other things to do, sure. Yeah. Puppet show. Okay, next. Metchila now, oh wait, but something very, very important I skipped. Okay. There's another ilu over here in the Haggadah, another counterfactual, which is the Rasha, had he been there, he would not have been redeemed. Okay. So now let's think about this. In light of what our understanding about Vadamidu. The question that the son asks is, what does that have to do with me? Now, the Chacham, the Tam, the Any Day Lishol, you're able to give them answers. The Rosh is the one who doesn't accept an answer. Ma'avad says, Lachem v'loy. He's committed to the idea that this has nothing to do with him. So we tell him. So now this is the same subject, right? The subject matter over here is, how does this have to do with the next generation that didn't experience it? And the answer is, Ilo l'hotzii HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's a moment in history, and you have to seize the moment and understand that this matters forever. The Russia that we say, you know what? Itaka doesn't have to do with you. Okay? So I would suggest, in light of the first Ilu, what that means is, the Russia who doesn't think it has to do with him, he's not masking to Ilu Ha'itzi Avisin as a Mמצרים. היינו משעובדים, ובנינו משעובדים. In other words, he doesn't understand that there's moments in history that are crucial for the course of history for thousands of years. Aha. Now, that's what his mistake is, right? And we also say about the Russia, ilu hayasham lo nigel, which suggests then that the people who weren't nigel are those people that didn't realize that there are moments in time that you have to seize them, or else you're going to miss the boat. They stayed in Mitzrayim. Kitzer, do you want to be nigel, you have to realize that there are points in time that this is when something is happening that's going to matter for a very, very, very long time. And if you want, and you better jump and go. The people who stayed in Mitzrayim, they're like, I've never wanted to leave Mitzrayim, but they'll go out when it's more geschmack, when everything is convenient. Therefore they will nigel, because in order to be nigel, you have to realize when the moment is there and when the window opens up, that's not just stam a window, it's the window. That's what's going to determine the whole future. In other words, it's the sense of history which motivates people to make big moves. It's the sense of recognizing that there are moments in time that matter for a very long time. Okay, yavin, you have to understand that there are moments in time that are opportunities, not just, it's not just that maybe this is not going to happen again. That's not the point. The point is that the moment is not just for now. The moment is forever. So, Avada, you do things forever. When an opportunity comes to do something forever, you do it. That's the motivation to leave. The ones who didn't understand that were not motivated to leave, and that's will stay behind. And that's why the Russia would. That's why the Russia is not nigel. Good. Next.
He literally would have stayed.
Literally would have stayed.
It's not like you were punished.
No, like nigga, because he would have been like, no, thanks. Yeah.
He would have just.
He wouldn't have taken part in the whole thing. He would have said, no, can start up with para and whatever,
Well, let us know when you get there.
Yeah. Tell us if it's nice. We'll come also, right?
Right. We heard there's a lot of mean guys there.
Yeah. What?
Shavuos.
Right. No. Okay. Next. Yeah, that's very, very firm, of course. מתחילה עבדי והמבין. Now this is a new part of the Haggadah. It was a new part of the Haggadah because, as the Gemara says, everyone says that masra begnus u'misayim b'shvach. That means you want to tell the story, you have to say how things were problematic, and then and then everything worked out, right? So what's the gnus? Shmuel says avodim hayinu vayetzienu. Rab says the gnus is מתחילה עבדי והמבין. So this is a whole different approach. This is a whole different beginning, as it were, to the story, and a new answer, as we'll see. Because here's the thing. The first gnus is that you're avodim, okay? And this gnus is that once upon a time our forefathers were talking about Terach and maybe Avram, were Oved Avodah. And now Kervanu Hamakam Lavodase. Okay, so what's this now Kervanu Hamakam Lavodase? Question number one. What's now? What?
It's a much longer story.
Yeah, it's a much longer story. Question number two. What are we going back to Terach? What do we care that Terach was Oved Avodah? Now, what do we bring from the pasuk in Yeshua? We bring from the pasuk in Yeshua. Shnei Yom Yeshua la'am. Koyma Hashem, your forefathers did Avodah, and I took Avram. And we end v'Yaakov abanav Yodu Mitzrayim. In other words, the quote from Sefer Yeshua doesn't even take us to the Yetziah Mitzrayim. In Sefer Yeshua it does, but in the Haggadah we end with Yaakov abanav Yodu Mitzrayim. Okay, why do we end with Yodu Mitzrayim? Okay, next, what is this next hemshich of Chishav HaKetz and V'hisha Amda? What's going on over here? What's this whole shtickle? So let me explain to you what's going on over here. It's very pashut. If the gnus is that we were avodim, that's the problem. Avodim with parents. That's what Shmuel says. Okay, and the shevach is we got out. But if the gnus is mitchila v'devazara, so then the solution to that is everything that happened after that, including the shibur of Mitzrayim. So this is a whole different story. If the problem is mitchila v'devazara, then everything that happened after that, including the bris ben abasarim, was a solution to the struggle that Avram had, Avram himself had to be Oker himself from Avodah Zarah. Now, what do I mean Avram himself? First of all, just to explain Pshat, מתחילה עבדי זרע בנינו, so we bring a pasuk, בעבר הנהר ישב ושכם בעולם, תרח אבי אברהם ואבי נחור, ויעבדו אלוהים אחרים, plural. Who's the plural? Says the Rambam in Avodah Zarah, Avram was doing Avodah Zarah together with his father. Avodah Zarah says, no, it can't be. Vayavdu Elohim Acherim is Terach and Nocher. But the Ma'aseh Medrash and Mefurish like the Rambam. Okay, upon him, the point is, Lenyanenu, doesn't matter either way. The point is that by saying Mitchila Avodah Zarah, we're trying to say like this, that Avram Avinu and Klal Yisrael, the Doris, are struggling to change themselves and to reach some place that is not natural to them. We're not naturally servants of Hashem. We sometimes need help to be servants of Hashem. And meaning to say, since we're struggling with Avodah Zarah, we might not achieve it. So how do we reach Das Hashem? How do we reach rejection of Avodah Zarah? The answer is, Hashem helps us out. You know how He helps us out? He always does the following mahalach. He makes tzaris and He makes geulas. And every time He makes geula, it's another opportunity to come around and say, you know what, Taka, we should reject Avodah Zarah. So since מתחילה עבדי זרע והיינו, so we need Hashem's help to be mekarev us to Avodah. And I'll prove it to you, says the Haggadah, because, I'll illustrate it. Because you know what happened by the bris ben Abasarim? Avraham Avinu said, Ba'mo'eda, says the Gemara in Nedarim, that's why we had to go down to time. Ba'mo'eda means, Avraham Avinu, as I discussed this in my Sfarim, that Avraham Avinu was not holding by 100% Das Hashem. Hashem said, Ani Hashem asher tzisicha me'o kazdim. And Avram said, Ba'mo'eda, meaning, I'm trying to get to Das Hashem. Because mitchila Avodah Zarah Avram's trying to reject Avodah Zarah legam. He rejected it, but he has to reject it completely, means to reach Das Hashem in a way that he has Yedei Hashem and he's good to go. Ba'mo'eda ki Roshana means, I need some help. I'm not holding by embracing Das Hashem in a most complete way that I'm secured to not have any shaykhs to Avodah Zarah, me and my nation forever. So Hashem says, fine, I'll help you. I'll help you. I'm going to make a tzara, I'm going to take you out, and when I take you out, the people are going to have an awakening and a possibility of a new rejection of Avodah Zarah that perhaps will stick forever. And that's what you get in Va'era. That Hashem, the Moshe brings a message to Klal Yisrael, Ani Hashem, let's do this again. Ani Hashem again. It didn't quite work. Nochamo. And you know what? The same exact model happens b'chol davar dar. Every time Hashem makes a tzara and every time Hashem makes a geula, it's the same exact thing. You know why Jews are chosen to suffer and have be redeemed? Because their history, their story, is one opportunity after another to finally completely rid themselves of the mitchilah of Avodah Zarah and embrace Das Hashem. Okay, so that's what's going on over here in this shtickle. The Yaakov Avanu Yodu Mitzrayim is the solution to the problem of Metchilah Avodah Zarah. So Shmuel starts the stories like this. We're going to keep it simple. Yes, there's a bigger story of why we went to Mitzrayim. We're going to keep it simple. Avodah Mayinu and Hashem took it out. Rav, who says Metchilah Avodah Zarah, says we're going to give a deeper story, that we're going to understand that there was a purpose for the Shibud Mitzrayim as well. And Baruch Shem after Chassid Yisrael Chishav Zaketz. The point of saying that is like this. It's saying like, if you start the story of Klal Yisrael from when we were redeemed from Egypt, we say, look, once upon a time we had a problem. We were slaves. Hashem came and took us out. We became His nation. Very nice. It's not important to say that Hashem had a plan from the beginning, because the point of the first story of Avinu is that the story of the Jews began when Hashem redeemed us. But here we're saying the story really began when we went down to Mitzrayim. That was a solution. That was Hashem helping us get away from Avodah Zarah. What do you mean Hashem's helping us? Yes, because Chishav Zaketz, the whole thing was planned ahead, and this was all part of Hashem's master plan. Again, Fraktazun, what does that have to do with me? That is V'hisha Amda, the same exact bris happens again and again and again. So this is answering the same question, same focus as Manashtana Halayla Hazeh. What does that have to do with today? And we have one answer in the context of Avodah Miyinu, and we have a second answer in the context of Metchilah. The answer in the context of Avodah Miyinu is maybe we're not slaves again, but what happened in the past determined our course of our history. The answer in the spiritual struggle of Metchilah Zarah is that actually the model, it's a pattern and it happens in every generation. So you're either in or you're in Hakadosh Baruch Hu Matzalenu Miyadam. These are things that are always happening, maybe both at the same time, different people basically. So the Amdim Aleinu L'Chaleseinu is in order to make Geula happen, so that when Geula happens, that's an opportunity for us to bring it back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and bring ourselves back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And once again, Hamevin Yavin, what we're supposed to do today. Okay? Oh, I have to tell you, what's going on over here. This will be a Maimer Hamuzgar because it's a whole Arichas. But, okay, this is clear? Yeah, good. Okay, but I want to give you a Maimer Hamuzgar, what happened in Lech Lecha. Hashem said to Avram, Ani Hashem Shezichem or Kazdim Loscha Tzasavishta, and Avram said Bama'eda. Once he says Bama'eda, so Hashem says Yodea Te Geres Aracha, which means, as we said, that okay, you're not holding by Das Hashem, you're still struggling with the fact that there's some vestige of Avodah Zarah. I'll help you. How will I help you? Because there are going to be redemptions, moments of redemption. Moments of redemption will be the opportunities for you to once again have this reawakening and come back, embrace Das Hashem fully. Okay. But I want to just tell you why Yodea Tedi Gezaracha follows from Bama'eda, meaning naturally. Why is it that when Avram Avinu says Bama'eda, naturally follows from that consequentially Shibud? Or in another way, how do these tzaras happen? Okay? The pattern of the hashgacha is, as we said, in order to enable us to once again discover Hashem as He does good to us. But I'm questioning now.
Or as He does, or as we have shibud again.
No.
As we discovered in that.
How do we discover it in that? No. I don't think that's right. No. Yeah. Right. We turn to Hashem. Right. No, we turn to Hashem. Yeah, we turn to Hashem from our suffering. Right. We recognize that in other words, we recognize that there's a problem with, let's say, the Mitzri paradigm because it hurts us. Yeah. We recognize there's a problem with the Russian paradigm with this, so on and so forth. And we turn to Hashem and we ask Him for help. And then, if He wouldn't help us, it would lead to something. But that's the beginning, right? The beginning of it is the recognition that this doesn't work for us. And the end of it is, okay, let's do something else. Let's be freed from Mitzrayim. Let's leave Russia. Let's whatever. Let's leave Germany and so on and so forth. Let's whatever. And that moment of being freed is supposed to recognize as the culmination of Taka. We're not supposed to be part of that model. Maybe there's something better. And that's Das Hashem. So that's going again and again and again. Why does it happen again and again? Because we never live up to it, or maybe we have to go through each kind of alternative, people say, right? Each possible paradigm. Okay. But I want to just explain like this.
Also, there's a point that every generation has to relearn it.
Okay, so is there an end though? Is there an end to history?
No, you have the question.
What are the end of times look like?
What does it have to do with me?
Right. No, so the answer is because they have to have a generation. No, but I'm saying, but in terms of just what is the end of this whole story, like when does it end? What's going to be different? Is it that we're going to run out of things that we learned, or is it going to be fundamentally different? That's something to think about. Yeah. But why does it follow from Avram saying Bama'eda that his children are going to be B'shibud naturally? I want to explain to you why I think. Because since Avram Avinu took upon himself to do this project of being the one who speaks for Hashem and sees for Hashem, sees S-E-E-S, sees the world, Areka. So B'kitzer Avram and his family are engaged in the greatest projects of humanity, the most momentous, right? So here's the thing. Here's what the Jew does. If he lives up to Das Hashem, he's cool, he's good. But if he doesn't, then he's very dangerous. Because he's doing the most momentous things. He's undertaking, making the world in Hashem's image, molding society in according to Hashem's wills. So if he's a little bit off, then he's a very dangerous person. So you know what he does subconsciously? He allows himself to be meshubed to the goyim. Okay, this is my Maimar Musker, that the Jews suffer because the only time the Jews will stop suffering is when they have Das Hashem. Till then, they're going to kiss the goyim and beg, and like they sometimes do. And why do they do that? They do that because, this is my theory, because they don't trust themselves. And they don't trust themselves because, since they are undertaking the most serious things, etc., unless you have Das Hashem, you're scared of yourself. You're scared of what you're going to do with your corrupted Das, your imperfect Das. And therefore you say, Goy, please tell me what to do. Please control me. Please be Mishabed me. Okay?
How does that make it better? He doesn't have that.
No, because, right. It doesn't, of course, how does it make it better for you? Because you're an Eved. No, you're an Eved. You don't want to be free, because if you're free,
then you have to do the thing.
Then you have to do what you believe in, and you have these messianic dreams, and if they're not perfect, then you just tell to please someone, just make me an Eved, just make me stop thinking. Mm-hmm. You're begging him to make you stop thinking, basically, because you're not thinking right, and that's why you become avodim. And then what happens is you suffer from the avdus. You're like, this is not working. Maybe I should go back to Hashem, and you start again. Rinse and repeat. And that's the state of history. And so again, this is the second answer to the son of what does that have to do today? In the spiritual way, in a different way, because it's recurring. Say Lamad is a hemshich. Here we just asserted it happens all the time. And not only that happens all the time, but this is a problem that the Ovis we're dealing with. So here we're going to show that it happens all the time. It happens even worse. It happens even to Yaakov, who's struggling with the same thing. And this is a perfect segue. So what's a beautiful segue into Armי Avidavi, which really we want to talk about Armי Avidavi. Why? Because if you look for a place in the Torah where there's a narrative, a retelling of the story of Mitzrayim, right? We're supposed to tell over the story of Mitzrayim. So what should we use? Oh, let's use the text of the Torah where the Torah prescribed for someone who wants to narrate telling Mitzrayim. By Bikurim, the Torah says, here, you say over Armי Avidavi and Mitzrayim. So that's naturally the text we want to use to do our mitzvah of recounting Mitzrayim. We get into that text through this very nice connection here. We talked about the fact that it starts from the Ovis, and that happens all the time. Yaakov Avinu illustrates both of those things. It starts from the Ovis, happens all the time. And Yaakov Avinu Shenemar Armי Avidavi, and now we can start talking about Armי Avidavi. So now we talk about Armי Avidavi, we go through every pasuk, because this is the parasha that narrates Yetzias Mitzrayim. So it makes perfect sense to dash in every pasuk, and in line with the objective for today's discussion, we're not going to go into each drasha, because the point is, I'm trying to give you the structure. Obviously, we're going to dash in every single word, and of course, it's beautiful Torah, so you could say on each word, but if you want to get the Tzuras Haggadah, you have to realize this is one unit. Armי Avidavi ends with the last drasha on those psukim is the 10 makis. Once you mentioned 10, because that's the last pasuk, and we dash in those 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2. So that's 10 makis. Okay, once we said 10 makis, we're going to bring the brises that are magdil in the makis. Basically, says is 50 on the yam. Keep this as a blazer, because even more makis. So many things Hashem did. Kama ma'alos tovos l'makam aleinu and dayenu. Say Hashem. Okay, that's what we got up to. What? Yeah.
What's that doing there? What's that say?
That's some drasha. So that's just a drasha that moifsa means down.
Oh.
Okay, but then it's davar acher. Davar acher v'yochazak l'shtayim. So that brings us to 10 makis. So once we're talking about 10 makis, which is so central in the story, you want to be marich about that and say 50, 200, 250, which is so it's a riboy, so many. Therefore, we lead into wow. Hashem did so many wonderful things for us, not just that there were so many makis, so many things, and we sing a song, or whatever. Hashem sings it, appreciating the wonderful things. Now we have a third part, as it were. So we really have got 3 parts. Avodim hayinu, מתחילה and segue into Armי Avidavi, and now we have a new start. This is how I see it. 3 different new starts. And again, Ram Gamaliel is connecting the story to food. If you want to be Yotzi Yechayiv of Yetzias Mitzrayim properly, or Yotzi, or you're not Yotzi, Mamish, or it's just not Karoi, then you have to bring it into the foods. Okay, fine. And then it says B'chol Dor V'Dor. Now in the Rambam's Haggadah,
eating the food, you're supposed to talk about the food.
Right. What?
You're supposed to talk about the food.
Right. You have to talk about the food. The talk has to be centered on the food. Correct. Good. Now, B'chol Dor V'Dor. The Rambam's Haggadah has U'V'chol Dor V'Dor. Okay. This I'm about to tell you. I'm actually have to give credit to the Sefer Divrei Sefer for Nachum Yabrov. Who had Mordechai Svan called Divrei Sefer, and he has one on Haggadah. And this point I'm about to tell you comes from him. He says like this. He says the Rambam's Haggadah has U'V'chol Dor V'Dor. So he reads it like this, and this is I think very correct. In Pesach Matzah Amor, we referenced Avoseinu. Ashum shepasach Hakadosh Baruch Hu Avoseinu. Ashum shelo yitzayzgam shel Avoseinu. Ashum shemirzim es Chai Avoseinu. You know why I'm eating Pesach Matzah Amor? Because Hashem did this to Avoseinu, and it's not just them; it's me also. Okay, so again, we have a third answer now. We have a third answer to the burning question. The burning question of the Haggadah is not just, who asks questions? Kids. It's not the word. The word is the question is, it's a Zman question that the next door, because it's a Zman later and didn't experience the time, doesn't understand what's going on over here. How do you get back to the past? And there's three answers.
So
answer number one.
Also part of, you don't say called
it maybe Taka. I'm not sure about that. Yeah, I think he wants to say it's part of a Gamliel's statement. And the Mishnah continues. He wants to say it's a Hemshech Mamish of a Gamliel's statement, right? So there are three answers. Answer number one. So again, that's the Nikuda that the whole Haggadah is revolving around. The son who sees this man as being treated as if you're back in Egypt, or not you left and you didn't just leave. What's going on? There are three answers. Past is present because it's relevant to today. What happened then has ramifications as effects for today. Answer number two is this is a theme, it's a recurring theme, and we are always somewhere in that story. We always have to talk about that story. That's the second answer. That's in the spiritual take on each time. And the third answer is, in a certain sense, I think this is the climatic answer, where you say, we ourselves left. Okay, so this is we ourselves left. It's not just, it's not negir to me, or it's a model for today. It's the third answer, which is we ourselves left. So now we have to understand, so what does that mean? Okay, so what does that mean? We ourselves left. Right? Some learned the Taisvirin and Archus Chaim, I think. No. Who was it? Yeah. Again, this is this Haggadah B'Seifim, thank you. They learned that this Vaisanu Ha'itzi Misham is the same thing as Ve'ilu L'Ha'itzi. Same thing. Why say it again? Because it's reiterating it. It's likuva. Okay, but it's mashma. It's more than that. What?
It's not this, then it's not a third one.
Then it's not a third one, right? Then it's just reiterating it, and it's a chasima. And of course, by the way, this brings us into lefika chanach l'chayavim. Obviously, once we say vaisanu ha'itzi, lefika l'chayavim and halal, beautiful. That's our ending. But just let's talk. I just want to say a word on what is vaisanu ha'itzi. So some people say it means that. Some say, I think this is Chachma Musar and Baal Tanya. He has a very interesting piece. You know what he says? He goes like this. Let me tell you exactly what he says. He says, this is the Lashon, so in the Arashaz. He says, he says, there's only one or two people in the that could do this. That could be Yetzir Tzchiv. Narvas, Zakter, Chazal weren't mechayev you to be Rayas Atzmi. Chazal were mechayev you to display. Famously, the Rambam says, Laharais. That means you have to act it, you have to, it's a drama. It's an enactment. And then he says, and the purpose of that enactment is because when you enact it, you feel the b'chush, you have amunah b'chush, it's a whole different level. Okay, nice piece. But I want him to b'dayik. He doesn't say that his habmin is wrong. He starts with saying only one or two people in the dark could do this. Teretzes chazal or mechayev, what? He's not saying that it doesn't mean you have to be rayas atzmi, it only means you have to pretend. He's saying really it does actually, the depths mean something more than just pretending. But you yoytze this chiyuv with pretending. Okay, that's I think how he understands it. So now, what does chayiv l'zatzmai? So either it means a pretend. Okay, now again, we can say like this. The lumdis, I just want to give you the study above it. The lumdis of Yitzis V'tzayim Manashtana is ilu l'haytzi or ela shebechol davido. Those are the two lumdis. And because of that, it gets to the point where I'm mamish pretending it, I'm so identifying with it. But there's no third lumdis. Okay.
So then I'm supposed to get myself to the point
get to the point and feel it like
a combination of the other.
Right, it's a combination, exactly. The two things, this is this climax. After thinking about that enough, I get to the point where I feel it and it's becoming as a lived experience, even though it's not. It's mashma, it's more than that. So then we have the Sifsei Kohen says our neshamis were there. Some say they were part of the shibud, some say they were part of the gula, okay, whatever that means. And now I want to say what the Maisa Nisim says, the Nesivis, which is my Hezber. He says a beautiful thing. He says, Vaisanu Ha'itzi Misham means that the purpose of Yetzias Mitzrayim was to have an effect. And the purpose of Yetzias Mitzrayim was to have an effect not only on the people that were there when it happened, it's to have the same effect on us. And therefore, that's called Vaisanu Ha'itzi Misham. Because the purpose of the Nisim, and he says every Nes is supposed to make a Roshim, and you should be Misamek in the Nes, till it makes a Roshim on you, the same way it made a Roshim on the people that were there. And that's the point that it's saying over here. It's saying Hashem did this, not only for them, He did it for us. He did it to change us. And therefore, that's the Vaisanu Ha'itzi Misham. Okay, but I want to be mamik a little bit more, because Saif, how do you say Vaisanu Ha'itzi Misham? Lamaisa, how do you say haynu hotzi misham? He didn't take us out. He took someone else out in order to have an effect on us, right? So I just want to say, and I'll end with this. It's very deep, so I'll say it b'kitzer. Yetzias Mitzrayim made us free from Abdus, and it also gave us Das Hashem. Torah, Das Hashem. Apparently those two things go together. Free from Abdus and Das Hashem go together. Let's say a Zustand to this. Aristotle says in his Politics, people don't like him for this, he says, some people are naturally slaves, and some people are naturally masters. Of course, no one likes that. But of course, it's also true. Some people are naturally slaves. That means, like we said before, like people who need to be enslaved, they need to be told what to do. Now, the fact is, so again, freedom is totally in Das Hashem, which means, sort of like we discussed, related to what we discussed earlier, maybe exactly the same thing, that by having Das Hashem, you are comfortable being free because you know what to do. Okay? Now, the fact is that a lot of people are comfortable being free even though they don't have Das Hashem, which is why people don't like Aristotle. They tell me people are slaves, he's a bad guy. But the truth is that those people are tricking themselves. Really, if they'd be honest with themselves. Nishna, they don't have Das Hashem, those people, but they're also not even honest with themselves to recognize that they're etzem slaves. They want to pretend they're doing a double trick. First of all, they don't have Das Hashem, and second of all, they pretend that they should be free for based on some, I don't know, whatever rights, whatever titles they make up. But really, there is such a thing as a slave mentality. You know, the people who don't have the cheres of the Moichin and Das Hashem, if they'd be truly authentic, they would be slave mentalities. Okay? So in that sense, Aristotle's right. Okay, now, I want to suggest the following. Asana Hoitz Misham means...
It's not necessarily natural, it's just how people are.
What do you mean? Why is it not natural? It is natural.
Anyone can work their way into freedom if they focus.
Oh, in that Aristotle's not right, exactly. But he might agree with that. I mean, that if you reach the point where you become a noble, if you have a Moshavenu who come and teach you Torah, and you become Ben Chayr, no, it's a Torah. Yeah, I don't think he's weighing in on the question of whether people could change or not. That's a different question. He's saying, but the people could be in a state, at least, where they're naturally slaves. It means past for their mahalach. And like I was saying before, not only past for them, they'll look for it. They need it. They need someone to tell them what to do. I said it means the following. If you reach the point where you understand for yourself that without Das Hashem, you would be a slave. You wouldn't trick yourself that you should be free. So now, you know why I'm free? Because Hashem makes me free. If not for Hashem, literally me today would be a slave to Mitzrayim. And then Mitzrayim means a type. Mitzrayim doesn't mean literally Egypt in this sense. It means this I am free because of Hashem. What does it mean I am free because of Hashem? The other guy's free, he doesn't have Hashem. Yeah, because he's tricking himself. I am not tricking myself. The lessons of Yetzias Mitzrayim penetrated enough that I recognize that I'm only would be free because I have Das Hashem, and I recognize that if I didn't have Das Hashem, I would literally run and be an Eved, and I wouldn't be a free person. Okay? So, however you understand this, and that's the Ma'aseh Nisim with a deeper Imek, because I want to understand how you could say V'asanu Hoitz Misham. He just says it affects us. But I would say V'asanu Hoitz Misham means what does Hotzi mean? What does it mean that Hashem takes someone out? It means the cause of me being out is Hashem. And the cause of me being out is Hashem can be true if you reach the Hakara